Will Smith has apologized to Chris Rock. Finally. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. And there are some of you may say, oh no, wait, he apologized at the Oscars. He apologized to the Academy. He apologized to the other actors. He apologized to everybody in that auditorium except Chris Rock. Oh, but then he apologized the next day. His publicist put out a statement on Instagram. We never saw him say anything. We never heard the words come out of his mouth. It was a written statement that was posted on Instagram. That was not Will Smith. Finally, he did say he apologized. He said he tried to reach out to Chris Rock. And let's talk about that. What he says is he has this taped interview that he put out on his channel. And what he said is he called Chris Rock, he tried to reach out to Chris Rock, and Chris isn't ready to talk to him. And quite frankly, I get it. And from Chris's standpoint, I'm like, okay, seriously, point blank period. You did something like that so brazenly, so blatantly, publicly, and then you want to reach out to me behind the scenes? Like you intentionally failed to apologize to me that night. You sat there and continued to laugh and act like everything was cool, even while Chris Rock has to finish giving out the awards to Questlove and them. And remember, when Questlove is coming up for his award, they actually made Chris Rock move further up the stage so that he's here, Will is sitting just feet away from him. And then when Questlove and them comes up, Will stands up and starts dapping everybody up on the way to the stage. Okay, so quite frankly, I get it. If Chris Rock just says, fuck Will Smith, I'm with it. As for everybody else, he didn't slap everybody else. And quite frankly, he didn't murder anybody. And even if he did, even after certain things, even after committing certain crimes, it's like, okay, people might have worked their way back or whatever. So it's up to people whether or not how they want to view him. But I did see some commentary on it, and he apologized to Chris Rock, apologized to Chris' mother, apologized to Tony Rock, Chris's brother, apologized to Jada and his family because he brought heat on them. Yeah, he did. He did. He really did. And I'm laughing because that leads into my theory. My theory on this was a lot different from other people's theory. I didn't think Jada put him up to this. I think Jada was a potential target. And I'll elaborate it a little bit. Yeah, him doing that brought more negative attention to her. And now people were actually talking about her very disrespectfully. So yeah, he didn't do her any favors with that. And like I said, in my theory, I think he knew that was going to happen. It's my theory. We'll get to it. He apologized to a bunch of people, but I remember seeing coverage of this, and the person who saw it from the Pascal show, he says his apology to everybody else sounded sincere, robust, and genuine, but his apology to Chris was hollow. Yeah, very hollow. It's almost like, because he even almost kind of gives a tacit defense of why he did it while he's talking about it. And I noticed this, and I'm like, yeah, okay. If Chris is like, I don't give a damn about you anymore. Ain't nothing to talk about. Just stay away from me. I stay away from you. If that happens, cool. I get it. And I wouldn't blame Chris one bit. I agree, because I'm looking at the tone, and like his apology to Chris Rock's mother is real. It appears much more real than his apology to Chris. His apology to Tony Rock, and he's like, listen, man, I'm sorry. We were so cool, and I ruined that. I messed that up. Those sounded so much more sincere than his I apologize to Chris Rock. Like that was perfunctory. And like I said, and this is months later, so I really don't think that the written statement that was put out on Instagram, I don't even think Will even read that statement. Before it went out, to this day, I don't even think Will has read that statement. The interesting thing I look at this is, yeah, people are saying, oh, some people are like, oh, he needs to be canceled. And some people are like, oh, people have blown this out of proportion. And guess what? Yeah, there are a bunch of people blowing this out of proportion and acting like, oh, Will Smith should never work again. I'm like, yeah, what he did was disrespectful. And in my opinion, what he did was some shady nonsense because of my theory on what prompted that. And it's just a theory. It's a potential theory. It's something I go and say, what if? I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. So let me fill you in on what a possible theory is from my perspective. Hey, Will, great news. And now, hey, this is completely off the record, but great news. I hope you wrote an acceptance speech. I'm just saying. Okay, listen, Will, you didn't hear this from me, but I've got a really good line that tonight is going to be a great night for you. You know what I'm saying? However, I did want to just point something out. Just one small little thing. You see, I'm pretty sure it's going to go your way. But there's just one slight problem. Like, you remember a few years back, you and your wife boycotting the Oscars? Listen, you were awesome in King Richard. You were great. We loved you. And you deserve it. There's no doubt you deserve it tonight. But, we just haven't recovered. We haven't recovered since, honestly, Will, y'all made us look racist. And, right now, our numbers are down. Our numbers have been down. Will, we're all rooting for you tonight, but we're going to need you to do something for us. You see, because the interesting thing about this Oscars is that this could be considered Oscars So Black. Now, contrast that to Oscars So White when, this was some years ago, when Jada said, we're boycotting the Oscars and because there's just not enough recognition of Black actors, including Will Smith at the time. And then we fast forward to this year when there's several Black actors being nominated, Black actors, Black comedians, Black musicians presenting, and a Black director of the show, even Black co-host. At this point, this really could have been considered Oscars So Black. So Will Smith doing that during this event had a very interesting significance from the area of symbolism. But you say, hey, no, it just happened that way. And I'm saying, not so sure it just happened that way. Let me explain. Because, as I said, Jada decided that she was going to boycott the Oscars some years ago when there was just no recognition of Black actors. Now that year, Chris Rock was hosting. The funny thing is that before Jada made her statement about Oscars So White and her boycotting, Chris Rock issued a tweet about Oscars So White. Chris Rock actually made a joke how white this Oscars was before Jada did. So Chris Rock makes his statement about this being the whitest Oscars ever. Then Jada comes out with her statement and says she's boycotting the Oscars this year. And it's later revealed in interviews, Will later reveals in interviews that he says, Jada made that decision without saying anything to me. So I just had to go along with it, which is an interesting take. It kind of lets you in on the psychology of Will Smith. The funny thing is, there was another high-profile Black person and Black Hollywood figure that spoke out. That person was Will Packer. Will Packer was the director of this past Oscars where everything went down. So Will Packer, Jada Pinkett, Chris Rock, all three spoke out against Oscars So White, and all three were heavily involved in Oscars So Black. All three got embarrassed at Oscars So Black when Will gets up, goes upstage, slaps Chris Rock, that's one embarrassment, at Oscars So Black, goes, sits down, and at this point, a lot of people still think it's a joke, and Chris Rock came out with the line, wow, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me, and people think it's a joke, people start laughing, and then Will Smith does something that seemed very curious. If your goal was just to let Chris Rock know, hey man, don't talk about my wife, you've already let him know. Because the audience may think you're playing, people watching the TV may think you're playing, the producers and directors may be like, okay, I guess they came up with that skit and nobody told us. They may think you're playing. Chris Rock really felt that smack and that hand come across his face. Chris Rock knows you're not playing. Why does Will Smith then start yelling, "Keep my wife's name"? Why? Because he had a smile when he went up to the stage. He had a smile coming down from the stage. Suddenly, when everybody starts laughing, that's when he starts yelling. He knows it's real. Chris Rock knows it's real. When everybody else thinks it's fake, Will Smith makes sure that everybody in that audience and everybody watching at home knows that was real. So now, Chris Rock has already been embarrassed, humiliated, smacked live on national television. Jada gets embarrassed because he ties this directly to her. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. Directly, oh, it's her. Keep my wife's name. He puts it on her. Despite the fact that in his apology, he said, oh, she didn't tell me to do anything. His behavior and his shouting out, hey, he brought the attention on her. And he did all of this. He showed out at the Oscars that was being directed by Will Packer. That's 3. Humiliated Chris Rock, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Will Packer in one swoop. Yes, it's a conspiracy theory, but some conspiracies actually happen. The interesting thing is, he says, hey, yeah, Jada didn't put me up to it. I didn't think she did. I did a little skit about who I think did. As always, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, like, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. But if you disagree, if you think, no, you're way off base, there's no way that could happen. It's just like you're acting like Hollywood is a cesspool where they do evil and wicked things just because. Go ahead and give me a thumbs down and tell me in the comment section, have you read anything about what's actually going on in Hollywood? I'll see you next time.